Okay, so my name is Alexei Michailowsky from York University in Toronto, Canada, and I'm taking my second PhD. I'm already a PhD. My first one was completed in Brazil, and I'm a specialist in electronic dance music and African American music and history and musicology of African American music and electronic dance music. And I also work a bit with production, and I explore local scenes. So having come from Brazil, having immigrated to Canada a few years ago, I was very curious about funk and disco music in Canada. One day, I went to YouTube looking for Canadian funk, and I first heard about this singer named Patsy Gallant. I heard the song. It was not Daya Dou Doum, the song I'm talking about today. It was Get That Ball, where she was singing like Aretha Franklin, like in that gospel influenced style, and I was like literally on my knees. So when I started the second PhD, I decided to study about Patsy Gallant, about Patsy Gallant's discography between 1972 and 1984, because I have an impression that Canada has a very selective memory about its music. It's a place that gives a lot of amazing artists and a lot of great music to the world, but is not very good at remembering this. So when I started to dive in Patsy Gallant's discography, I went through her second album in French. She recorded in English and in French. She's bilingual. And I found this song called Daya Dou Doum, which caught my interest from the first moment. So let's start this presentation from how Patsy Gallant entered Canadian music history as Canada's disco queen. She's the most successful Canadian disco artist because actually it's Mon Pais, but the English version, which was named From New York to LA, was a big hit, was a big worldwide hit, and it reached number 3 in the UK charts. And Patsy received the silver record that she still proudly has in hanging on the wall of her home in Montreal. But when I met Patsy Gallant in the first, when I started this PhD at York University, I had the opportunity of meeting Patsy Gallant because she was she was performing. I lived in Ottawa back then, and she was performing in Gatineau, Quebec. That is just across the bridge. So we met, and she was very excited about my research. And then one day, the first time I called her, she said, "I was the first artist to record disco music in French with Mon Pays c'est l'hiver, or Mon Pays." I was very intrigued with that. So let me show you guys a bit of Patsy Gallant as a disco queen. So 1975, Mon Pays.
Mon pays, ce n'est pas un pays sans l'hiver. Mon jardin, ce n'est pas un jardin, c'est la plaine. Mon chemin, ce n'est pas un chemin, c'est
Okay, so this is Montpellier from 1975. So first of all, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Patsy Gallant. She's a bilingual French Canadian singer born in the province of New Brunswick. This is very important in the Canadian context because there's an everlasting, I'd say, dichotomy between Quebec, the province of Quebec, and the rest of Canada. Patsy lives in Quebec, she lives in Montreal, and many people in Anglophone, in the rest of Canada, believe she's a Quebecer, but she's not. She was born in the only officially bilingual province in Canada, even though she descends from French settlers, and she identifies as a French Canadian. She's a virtuosic vocalist with an extremely developed intuitive musicality. So after meeting Patsy Gallant and after having a good taste of what she can do, I can compare her musicality with Michael Jackson's. After seeing some videos of Michael Jackson explaining how he wrote music, Patsy Gallant writes music in a very similar way. She just starts singing and okay, we've got a song. She's extremely versatile. She grew singing variété in French variété in Montreal. As a child performer, actually she was 10. Then she became a TV and radio performer, mostly at Radio-Canada, the French public station in Canada, and she was one of Canada's top jingle singer, and she has recorded multiple music genres, from country to rock to hard rock, a bit of everything. She released her first solo album in 1972, blending soul, rock, and jazz. And then she turned to disco after being encouraged by CBS Canada. And she's mostly remembered for a period of her career between 1976 and 1979, when she was recording mainly disco music. And she even hosted a weekly nationwide disco music show on CTV. That's one of the nationwide private TV chains in Canada between 1978 and 1979. Then in the 90s, she became a very successful musical theater actress in Paris, mostly at Starmania, which is one of the most popular ever musicals in French language. So that question, if we consider all of Patsy Gallant's career, was very intriguing to me. Where and when did Patsy Gallant turn to disco music? So when I was listening to her second French language album called Trois Enfants from 1974, I found this song. It was pretty much forgotten, and Patsy herself found it hard to remember the song. I remember when I visited her first, and she showed me all her discography, all the records she had of herself. And I mentioned about Daya Dou Doum, and she didn't remember the song. Anyway, I'll show you a little bit of Daya Dou Doum.
Mon cœur chantait pour lui. Je suis tombée sur mon homme. Mon cœur chante Daya Doum. C'était vent de folie qui s'abat tous
Okay, so that's one of my favorite tracks on Patsy Gallant's discography. And well, in spite of that, I started to think if Daya Dou Doum could be considered a proto disco track. And when I was discussing about this track with Patsy, she was very emphatic. This is funk, and I said, yeah, the, you may have created the track as funk, but maybe it's a proto disco track that's pointing you to disco music. That maybe one of the first steps you take in towards disco music, because disco music did not appear at once with a finished formula until 1974, 1975. Everything could be discotheque music, and many authors like Kate Fickenshire, Alice Sackles, and James Arena agree on that. So anything that was played in dance clubs between 1970 and 75 could be considered as proto disco music, and it was this concept was based essentially on the taste of whatever the DJ happened to be playing at the time. So I decided to explore Daya Dou Doum in a retrospective way, considering Patsy's career as a whole, because she did not start singing disco music, and disco music just happened in her life, in her career. And I decided to compare this track with a proposed definition of disco music that I compiled myself. And I also performed musical analysis through listening and through the use of artificial intelligent software tools to isolate the individual tracks of the recording. I ripped the original vinyl album. It has never been released on CD, and it has never been made available on streaming platforms. So about the concept of disco, very quickly, it's an African-American genre that dominated the nightclub world in the late 70s. It waned after 1979, but remained prevalent and influential through the years. It has roots in the New York nightclub scene with a solid male, gay, Black, and Latino audience. It was shaped by DJ craftsmanship. The music industry came a little bit late and took a formula or a sketch that was created by DJs. It's based on repetitive quaternary rhythm patterns with quarter beats, often steadily accented to create a four-on-the-floor structure, emphasizing bass sounds for danceability. Tempos are stable, ranging from 96 to 140 BPM usually, with most recordings staying around 120, 130 BPM. Well, it's not a strict formula, but on the average, it's like that. It welcomes jazz and gospel-influenced vocal acrobatics, as well as straightforward singing styles devoid of virtuosic displays. This acceptance of straightforward singing styles happened very much after disco moved towards the mainstream. The vibe. So in the disco songs often bring positive messages of love, romance, empowerment, hope, redemption, ecstasy, libido, exoticism, or the invitation to dance and have a good time. Sometimes it's humorous and satirical. Arrangements feature a strong rhythm section. Guitars and keyboard instruments widely employed for the harmonies and for riffs. or even for solos. The same for horns, strings, and woodwinds. Some disco music recordings involved a large number of musicians. Scores can be complex and difficult to perform. So about the album version of Daya Dou Doum, it also had another recording that was made for a TV special. They cut another version in the studio for a Radio Canada TV special. Wow, it's incredible how and why they do it instead of using just the album version. So we have some aspects here. The total time signature, the structure, the form, the tempo, making considerations of that. So it ranges between 118 and 124 BPM, with a considerable change of pace in an interlude in the middle. It slows down the movement. About the dynamics, it's strong for the verse, a little bit softer for part B, the interlude. Then there's a crescendo, and it gets strong again to the end. The drums are not as evident as in many disco recordings, but the proportion is similar. So if you listen to Daya Dou Doum, your body tends to move like 1, 2, 3, 4. Even though if we see the individual parts, you will notice what I call the break. But anyway, the key signature, it's in D minor, and it essentially revolves about a 2-chord groove: G minor 9th and D minor 7th and 9th. And about Patsy Gallant's vocalist, she told me something very interesting when I was asking her about the way she sang in her first albums. She said, I was trying so too hard. So she wanted to show off her skills in her first albums. But on Daya Dou Doum, she chose a cleaner approach. She no melismas, no shouting. She just goes over the lyrics and the notes in a straightforward way. And there's the mix influences the final result. I'll talk about that shortly. So, using the artificial intelligence tools, I was able to isolate a few parts. So I could investigate the arrangement through listening with those tools. So we have here guitars and keyboard. Here it is. We have the bass guitar here. I'm sorry if you don't hear it well. It may be difficult. And the drums. So the track is involves this break. It does. And it was cut at a time when Patsy Gallant was opening for James Brown in his 1974 Canada dates in Montreal and in Toronto. So it was conceived with funk as a reference. What Patsy said was correct at a point, but sorry about that. The mix, the final mix, was made in a way that instead of, for example, emphasizing the rhythm section, the drums and the bass, for example, if you take a James Brown recording, the drums and the bass are clearly in the top, at the front. So you can definitely hear them. But even though all those parts feature that break, The bass guitar, the Rhodes piano, they're all based on this rhythm structure. But because of the way the mixing engineer Michel Tank Lachance organized the different tracks in the mix, the rhythm backbone was pretty much hidden. In the end, what you hear is a mass, a sonic mass that's composed of juxtaposed autonomous blocks that move in parallel, but there's not a single block. Or in the end, there's a single block, but it's not what they intended. So the resulting sound mass.
Alexei.
Okay. Time?
Yeah.
Well, I'm almost.
Go ahead. Thank you.
So in the end, it makes a regular 1-2 movement instead of letting the syncopation in the rhythm section lead the overall movement. So, conclusion. For the analysis results, the time signature and the tempo are similar to the ones frequently found on disco music. Part of the song is built upon a repetitive groove that prompts listeners to move their bodies to the music. The use of a string session, there's a string session, brings a lush and sophisticated component to the track. The romantic lyrics and Patsy Gallant's sensual vocal performance add up to creating a vibe. The rhythm propulsion is not led by the rhythm section, but by a whole mass made of small cells moving in parallel. So, in late 1973, when this track was recorded, Patsy Gallant and the people who took part at the recording session of Daya Dou Doum were not aware that it could be connected to a new discotheque formula. Mon Pays was not Patsy's first disco track built on purpose. She made a few singles before Mon Pays, still for CBS, that were clearly disco. So she was not very accurate in her thought that Mon Pays was her first recording. But anyway, after all the analysis and all the contextualization, we can say that Patsy Gallant might have been a Canadian and a Francophone disco music pioneer who gave her first steps with Daya Dou Doum, a proto-disco track. Okay, thank you very much